all throughout Gaza, the situation is brutal. We're going to focus on the maps here off the top just to give people a grasp of what we're talking about. We're going to talk about operations in Rafah in the very far south, all the way up to Jabalia, which is still under siege now, 60 days on in the north. So if we focus in, I just wanted to bring a couple facts to people here. The World Health Organization this week said that 90% of Gaza's population are living in tents. And that was an intentional policy that the Israeli military has been carrying out to destroy the shelters and burn them. And just as someone who follows their field reports, I just want to say that they talk about that in their field reports, dismantling the schools, burning the shelters, attacking the schools where people were taking shelter. That has been a systematic policy since the summer that they have been talking about within their internal field reports. And it's the same with the starvation as a weapon of war. On Army radio this week, a major general said that the kidnapped in Gaza, the captives, the soldiers, are starving, he said. They said that the IDF assessed to the political echelon, conveyed this assessment to the political echelon. The assessments from the Major General are growing with us, with the military, about the deteriorating situation of the abductees, including the starvation of some of them. There is a problem of accessibility to groceries in the strip. I can tell you that some of the abductees are in very serious danger and there's a risk to their lives. So the Israeli military is very clear about what they're doing, and they're sending a signal to the political echelon that the starvation policy is maybe going to impact the captives as well, which is I just found that to be such a stark, especially after you hear Dr. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 talk about all the systematic way that this has been approached, the starvation, to just for the Israeli military to point out that their captive soldiers are going to starve as well. I just wanted to bring people that. So operations in Rafah, we have been talking about Rafah since May, but we haven't talked about it much lately. I brought it up on the show last week because it appeared in the field reports over the past 2 weeks. And I just want to point out this field report from November 22nd. 𝐤𝐿 fighters were able to carry out a complex operation against enemy soldiers and vehicles near Burj Awad Junction in Rafah City a short while ago. Our fighters spotted a number of occupation soldiers in the area and successfully sniped 3 of them with Al-Qassam's Al-Ghul rifle and confirmed the death of 2 soldiers for certain. As soon as a Zionist Merkava tank arrived to rescue them, it was targeted with a Yassin 105 shell and caught fire. After that, our fighters spotted a military bulldozer advancing to pull out the burning tank and targeted it with a Yassin 105 shell. Our fighters also spotted a helicopter landing to evacuate. So that was the field report that I brought you last week. And I just want to highlight that as the fidelity to the field reports, how accurate the 𝐤𝐿 field reports are compared to the Israeli ones that say, we killed 100 people today, we killed 100 fighters, we killed 60 fighters, just absurd numbers that don't match any kind of on-the-ground reality. And you get a 𝐤𝐿 report like that on November 22nd. 𝐤𝐿 could write these field reports and say anything, but they don't. They write an accurate field report. So let's watch this first video here, and we're going to set up what that description of that operation was. This is called Operation Avenging Sinwar, and this commander is going to describe the operation here, which is this is a 4-stage ambush, part 1 of a set of 3 ambushes that are derived in Rafah. Remember, the Rafah brigade we were told they were defeated in August. Yahya Sinwar was killed in Rafah in Tel Sultan, and this operation by the Rafah brigade, you can see there 11/22. So this is the video from that field report from weeks ago. So the commander says, after monitoring the movement and behavior of the enemy forces, the decision was made by the command of the Eastern Battalion of the Rafah brigade to equip a series of complex and tight ambushes in the targeted operational zone. You can see it there on the screen. Fire will be opened up by 𝐓𝐡𝐞. So he talks about 3 elements of this. And this is, I believe, you're looking there at the Egyptian border. So that's the Philadelphia corridor that they're showing right there. So they're monitoring the troops, the Israeli troops coming along the Philadelphia corridor. And that's the purpose of the Philadelphia corridor, to allow the Israelis to move inside into the central areas of the territory more effectively, so they can jump off in this way. So they've been monitoring this. And 𝐓𝐡𝐞 says there's 3 elements, and they name the fighters, which is interesting. They haven't really, I don't believe they've ever done that before, said the fighters' names. 𝐓𝐡𝐞, Khalid, and Walid are in on these operations, and each of them are team leaders of a squad. So they're pointing out this operation, setting it up. Again, we see command and control. We see things that we were told didn't exist. The Rafah brigade fighting. And he says, the commander says, "We will avenge the blood of our great leader, the great martyr, Yahya Sinwar, Abu Ibrahim, who was killed fighting on the land of the Rafah brigade." And so now we're seeing the operation here. Again, we've taken out the audio out of this operation, but the fighter says, we see their movements moving into the area. Now we see the vehicles. So this is exactly what they set up and exactly what is supposed to happen here. So number 2, is this number 2? Yeah, so number 2, who have 𝐓𝐡𝐞, the sniper, he's set up. Again, we see proper technique. He's completely inside the building. I've edited the motion of these soldiers, but you can see these soldiers are moving across the land. And this is the sniping operation that was accurately described in the field report. I have edited out the dropping of the soldiers to match YouTube community guidelines. But if you want to see the full videos, you can go to my Twitter account as ever and see the uncensored versions. We have to keep these strictly edited to adhere to YouTube guidelines, which we do. If you're listening, YouTube, we do. So these are this is the sniper's operation. Maybe we can loop it back and just take a look at the setup that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 has here. He's up on top of the wardrobe. He's up on top of the furniture. He's completely inside the building. His muzzle's not hanging out of the building like we see the Israelis doing all the time. And he is sniping those soldiers that in the video are moving. In this, we have it as a still, just to keep the thrust of the operation in to meet the YouTube standards. So yeah, number 3, so that's 𝐓𝐡𝐞. Now Khalid's motion, his unit is waiting for the movement of the armored vehicles predicted by their intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance and target acquisition. And here they go. We got a cameraman, and we have, I call them a helmet cam, but people point out that there's no helmets, and you're right, it's just on their heads. But you can see the tank barrel moving directly over to presumably Khalid, at least Khalid's team. And you can see, again, just the courage of these operations, the tank barrel. We're going to see that multiple times. We saw it on the last image during the sniper operation. The tank barrel is pointed straight at these fighters. And so that's Khalid and his archer squad. Again, we don't see the trophy system enable in that. And now here's Walid cutting off the D9 armored bulldozer that comes to pull out the tank that has been hit and is burning. The fighters don't stick around to watch the burning because they're trying to return to their base safely to fight another day. These are not martyrdom operations, as we have pointed out throughout this entire battle. I showed you this last week, the 2-person crew inside the D9 armored bulldozer made by Caterpillar in the United States, Peoria, Illinois, on the BDS list. There's 2 in the cabin. You can see a direct hit on the cabin. There's 2 crew in the cabin. They sit side by side. They're like a little bit, the driver's sunken down and the commander's up a bit higher. But a direct hit in the same operation. These videos are parsed out all from the same Operation Avenging Sinwar. And now we're going to see number 5 here. This is an F7 fragmentation warhead. So this is an anti-personnel warhead. And you can see the distance here. They're going to focus in on, they're going to count the triangles, and the fighter in the audio counts the triangles. You can see their legs in the stairs. You can't see anything other than that. for YouTube, so this fits. So he counts out the 7 soldiers that are going into this building, and the fighters are trained in on the building. And now the distance of this, some people asked about the distance of this. So I did a calculation of the sound wave, both of frame by frame and a calculation of the sound wave. And this is a 194 meter shot, which is the outer limit of the effective range of this weapon. And it's a dead on bullseye shot by that fighter. So 𝐓𝐴𝐧𝐢𝐜 unit is impressive archers, 194.38 meters. It's a pretty remarkable shot there. And then this last number 6 is they announced coming soon, because this is ambush number 1 of a 3-part series of ambushes in Rafah. There's the medevac helicopter, exactly like the field report said, which is just something that I always like to point out, because just the juxtaposition between the Israelis saying that they killed 1 million fighters every day, and 𝐓𝐡𝐞 giving you honest, accurate, like strictly accurate field report, when you don't know that a video is coming 2 weeks later in this case, and it does, and it comes, and it's exactly matching what the fighters say. They're not putting out fake field reports to make it seem like they're fighting. These are authentic field reports that are showing accurate scenes from the battle that we see on video shortly after, even though the videos are only a portion of the operations, as 𝐓𝐡𝐞 points out all the time, and as you can see in the field reports as well, that videos make up only a small portion of the actual operations that are going on. So that was in Rafah. There's operations, we'll look at the map here, heading up north. Operations again on the Netzarim corridor. The corridor has been widened. I've pointed this out the last few weeks. It's now 7 kilometers wide, and there's continuing clearing operations in Tel al-Hawa and Zaytun neighborhoods, ethnic cleansing. Dr. Issam said between 250,000 and 400,000 people still living in the north. They're not leaving the north, despite the ethnic cleansing campaign that Israel is carrying out. People are not going through the corridor down to the south. The numbers of that are a handful. They have been that way for 2 months. They haven't changed. People are internally displaced in the north, and these operations continue in Jabalia 60 days on of this siege that has been brutal. As Nora pointed out, 2,700 people at least killed already, 10,000 wounded just in the siege of Jabalia, which is an effort to cut off Beit Hanun, which you see there up on the northeast, and opposite to Beit Hanun is Beit Lahia, and the Jabalia camp is north of Jabalia city there. And so they're attempting to cut off the north from Jabalia, from Beit Hanun from Jabalia. Israel's building these corridors in order to cut up the Gaza Strip. This is a long-time Zionist fantasy to cut the Gaza Strip into 5 segments. It's what they did when the settlements were in Gaza, in order to manage the population. And like I said about the Philadelphia corridor, and like we saw in that last operation, the ability to move into the center of the strip and attack upwards from there is a military asset. And this is what Israel has attempted to do in its failure to do anything else in the war. Its failure to destroy the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 brigades or any of the armed movements, its failure to destroy the Hamas government, its failure to return the captives. All of these operations have been a failure, and what they're doing in place of those military failures is attempt to hold on to these corridors of territory while ethnically cleansing the population. And the effort in Jabalia right now is focused on D9 armored bulldozers, destroying houses on the outer edges, and shrinking the area, which has been what has been going on from the Netzarim corridor in Tel al-Hawa and Zaytun, and is happening in Jabalia. So they're on the ground, carefully destroying what is left of Gaza from this 14-month genocide. This is now the 3rd major operation into Jabalia. So let's look at number 7, because it's the D9s that are being targeted, and they're still being hit with appropriate weapons. This is a 𝐓𝐡𝐞 shock device. You can see it hidden under there on the rock, under the cinder block, tracking the bulldozer. You can see a closed circuit television camera here. And that device is detonated. Again, that's a 𝐓𝐡𝐞 device. It functions similar to the 𝐓𝐡𝐞, where the shock explodes a shape charge out. And so these are used against bulldozers. They're not used against tanks. And so again, you see them using appropriate weapons for the vehicles, still 14 months on, still using their own tools that they have made. And again, the field report for this: after returning from our battle lines, our Mujahideen reported that a Zionist military bulldozer of the type D9 was targeted with a shock bomb last Friday, killing those inside. That matched with the Israeli casualty report from that day as well. So again, accurate field reports down to the letter. This operation was December 1st, and the video came out the next day. So they're able to continue to publish these videos promptly. So 14 months on, matching the casualty reports. We can look at number 8 now. This is the second part of that operation. This is the targeting of a tank with a 𝐓𝐡𝐞. You can see the fighter running the wire. The 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is in the building there, and it's placed a distance to allow the shape charge to form before hitting the tank. We've seen them do that when they hand deliver them. They try to put them between 1.5 and 3 meters. You can see the fighter, as soon as he's exposed there, he drops down so he's not seen. It looked a little bit like he was fired on, but he was not. He's just getting out of the way so he can return to his base safely. And again, detonating homemade, 𝐓𝐡𝐞-made Gaza industry weapons. Okay, so this next slide, before we go to it, I just want to give you a warning. There's going to be audio of gunfire in this track because I left the audio in. I want you to hear what it sounds like when these guys are fighting. So these are not, I wanted to show you that what the sound of the battlefield is when these operations are taking place. Again, an elevated 𝐓𝐡𝐞 strike, perfectly executed. You can see that the turret of the tank is perpendicular to the shooter, which opens up a wider turret gap on that. And you can just hear the sounds of the battle. These fighters are in the middle of battles. They're not taking pot shots. Here it comes again. And during this operation, you can see the tank barrel is pointed the opposite direction. So more open area for the archer to hit. And during this operation, Qassam also seized quadcopters, which has been going on throughout the war, both the terror of the quadcopters and the ability of Qassam to capture them, GPS spoof them presumably, and land them safely, because they're not being shot out of the sky, they're being landed without scratches. So that is continuing to go on. If we look at number 10, we get another 𝐓𝐡𝐞 strike, again out the door. These are a genre that we've been watching for this whole battle, popping out of the alleys. This is in Beit Lahia, but the alleys all over Gaza, all over the West Bank as well, are terror for the Israelis, and a key area of the resistance. Jabalia is the center in many ways of the resistance. It has been since the armed struggle began. I try to point that out all the time. It's the place where the first Intifada began. It's the place where the armed struggle really took off in the 1980s in Jabalia, and it has vexed the Israelis since then. And that's why this is now the third invasion of Jabalia. And each time in December and then in May, and now again, they say that they have dismantled the resistance, and we watch clearly that they haven't. Number 11, Israel released this video because this is them towing their disabled vehicles, and this was their maintenance unit showing off how they tow their destroyed vehicles that are hit. And they use statistics but they don't tell you the number in their inventory. So they use statistics like 88% of our vehicles are still operating, but they don't tell you how many of those vehicles, because many of those vehicles are M113s, which don't count. And that's how you end up getting these muddled statistics that are just essentially propaganda, because you can't 80% of what? They did the same thing with the rockets in Hezbollah's arsenal by saying, we got rid of 80% of the rockets, but 80% of what number? Because going into the war with Hezbollah, they used the number of 150,000 to 250,000. So is it 80%? They don't say. So just a juxtaposition between Palestinian field reports and Israeli ones. Number 12 is a mortar operation by 𝐓𝐿 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜. And again, so this is in Jabalia. They're able to pick up on this position. The Israelis are on the outskirts. They're not even in the center of Jabalia. They're pushing in from the outskirts. They're destroying the schools. They're besieging the hospitals. And this fighter's pointing out the date of the operation, which was 21 November. They were able to put this video out. Again, really quickly, 𝐓𝐿 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 still operating. The Joint Operations Room is still operating. All of the 10 other factions are still in the battle. 𝐓𝐿 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 and the PFLP were firing mortars together yesterday. The day before that, Soraya and the DFLP, the leftists, were firing mortars. I don't bring you these mortar operations all that often because that's pretty much all you see is them loading it up and firing it. But this was a particularly successful operation. I've edited out what Soraya put in this operation, but they pointed out the casualty report from the Israeli military that matched that operation in Jabalia. And those operations are happening in the Netzarim corridor literally every single day. Also, number 13, the rocket units are still operating. This is 𝐓𝐿 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜's 107 millimeter rocket artillery. Here you can see the sign that says that that's the rocket force from the north during the Battle of Al-Aqsa Flood. And this fighter, as he's setting up this, he says in the background, he says, "We say to the occupation, no matter how much you assassinate us, no matter how long this war lasts, we will continue to fight. Even if we are slaughtered on a rock, we will continue to fight." He sets the timer. These rockets are launched by timer. So they set the rocket up in the afternoon. They launch the timer for 9 p.m. And the fighters then are not targeted after the launch of the rockets. So these rocket operations are continuing every day. The mortar operations are continuing every day, and qualitative operations like complex ambushes in Rafah, where the Israelis said that they don't exist anymore. And Dr. Issam pointed out that the population has been pushed completely out of Rafah. There's no, according to the Israelis, no humans left in Rafah, but the resistance is still there. So that is the resistance report for this week from Gaza. We are